Today I'm taking a look at 10 upcoming mech games. Games with mecha in them, big piloted robots, that seems to be the jam. Some of these are games that I've been interested in and watching personally, and some were thrown into the mix just to get a good variety. Hopefully I'm able to spotlight at least one thing interesting for anyone who is viewing the video. And we are already getting our sequel to the 2024 Mech Builder Gunpla Model Simulator game. The original title used 2D graphics, and this sequel will be using 3D, as is the case with the name. While I haven't gotten around to playing the original yet, it always seemed like it would be a generally fun and relaxing experience to be able to build some model kits without making a big mess on my computer desk. The first game did get some criticisms over its use of AI for generating assets, or at least parts of assets. On a greatly positive note, Don Pachi, the developer, has made statement that Mech Builder 3D will not be using AI, as the success of the first game has provided the finances for a dedicated art team. You gotta love to see it. As far as I can tell, the Hong Kong Shenzhen-based indie Imina studio has slated their maiden project, Ace Strategy Mecha Nova, to be released at the very tail end of 2025. What I think makes this one look interesting, besides its over-the-top and over-engineered and frankly awesome mech designs, is that it's actually a deck builder. The strategy is not just in some sort of turn-based combat, but in a sort of card game. Not only that, but it's getting a procedurally generated campaign which scores on replayability, and also noting that it is getting a dedicated player versus player mode as well. Have you ever thought, I really want to play Armored Core right now, but I also really want to watch Tron, and I can't decide which to do? Well, then look no further than Imperium Studio with their first game, NEUROXUS. That goes as far to even self-describe itself as a third-person shooter with Armored Core-style combat and Tron-inspired neon visuals. I don't know if you need more information than that to hook some interest, but it's supposed to have 16 challenging missions set in various cyber-apocalyptic environments, and its very own original soundtrack consisting of industrial rock music too. This one maybe feels like it comes out a bit left field because it's such a unique oddball. So, a role-playing game? The combat, instead of being action or turn-based, is a rhythm game about dancing. A role-playing rhythm game about giant robots having dance battles. I don't know how I feel about this one yet, but that's what makes it interesting to me. It sounds so insane, and maybe it'll turn out to be something that's not for me, but I do love that it's there simply for the sake of the wild variety it's adding into the mech game world. And also, it looks like you'll be able to throw in all of your own music into the game, which is the icing on the cake for any sort of rhythm game, right? I feel so directly targeted by this one visually. What an absolutely beautiful and stunning looking project. Ironwing Valiant, Record of Astera, very clearly takes heavy inspiration from Valkyria Chronicles with its watercolor, color pencil aesthetic. But it does in fact appear to have action combat, with some totally rad robot suits. This one I have heard is going to be single player only, which I hope amounts to a pretty substantial campaign. It is coming up on a combat playtest, to which I have my fingers crossed that I can manage to get in. Following this historical basis, moving out of the turn-of-the-century theming, we've got ourselves Nobleman 1941. If you couldn't tell by the date in the title, this one is World War II era. Alternative history, of course, given that the Axis and Allies powers did not have commandable mech power suits. This one is going to be a third-person shooter that endorses some real-time strategy elements like unit commanding, tactical pauses, resource management. I get Warhammer 40k vibes from this one. Maybe it's just the vague armor silhouette of the main character in the middle of the screen with his giant pauldrons and huge sword, or maybe it's because the game appears to be so grim, dark, and gritty. Changing pace to the exact opposite directly in nearly every single way, we've got AnimalKind. This is one of those cozy games. Open world, cutesy graphics, town building, crafting, happy little puppies. Except you do it all in an ancient or magical mech suit, which is pretty silly. Now, depending on how hard they lean into the mechanics side of gameplay for using the mech suits, this could be pretty cool. I did quite enjoy Lightyear Frontier, which sorta does the same thing, you know, you're a space farmer, but instead of a tractor, the tractor is a mech suit. Regardless, all of this adorable critter stuff could be pretty nice, because while there's no way I can convince my wife and daughter to play something like Nobleman 1941 with me, maybe they would dip their toes into the giant robot stuff with something like AnimalKind, which appears to be built for multiplayer play. I did play the demo for this one, and I've gotta say, I loved the thing from an audio-visual standpoint. Marvin Wizard took the formula presented within the contemporary survivors-like genre and slapped it as hard as he possibly could with 90s PlayStation nostalgia, low-poly graphics with a killer drum and bass jungle soundtrack, and the addicting survivors-like gameplay. I also want to point out here that the mechs in this one seem to be slanted toward a more medieval fantasy type theming, which I love to see. It's not just a cool big robot guy, but a cool big robot that is also a knight. BC Piezophile seems a bit hard to pin down. I think what it's going for is some sort of nightmare experience, which I think is pretty welcome. There's a lot of potential for mecha horror, which I always feel is like an underutilized combination. Now, from what I gather, you pilot some sort of suit around underwater on a planet that has had an apocalyptic flood event while waiting for rescue. Now, I don't quite know what it all entails. I am captivated by the phrasing insane esoterica and confusing encyclopedia entries that will not help you off of the store page listing. Also, for some reason, the German film director responsible for all those bad video game to movie adaptions, Uwe Boll, is providing the voice work for a future DLC for this game. I'm captivated. Final game to look at today is EXOMECHA, slated for the beginning of 2026 by the developer Twisted Red. I've seen various clips of progress for this game posted around the net, and it always reminds me of Crysis. You know, the game that so many people used to use as a PC benchmark in the later half of the 2000s? Can your computer run Crysis? Yeah, I felt so cool when my computer could. Anyways, I'm reminded of that because of how quick and snappy the first-person combat seems to be. The muscly, sinewy visual style of the mechanical robot suits remind me of the Crysis suit, and the tropical island environment, of course, also. I guess there's also a robot dragon in this game, too, which is cool. Okay, so this one is going to be a multiplayer shooter. It's supposed to have two different game modes, 20 versus 20 vehicle-based combat, or a game mode for Battle Royale, which is 1 versus 100. The caveat of the Battle Royale mode being that there are the mech suits, which I think, if done well, could be a really cool addition to the Battle Royale genre, actually. Thanks for watching the video. I'm Sir Armor, and I've decided to start dedicating this channel to almost exclusively giant robot content. While I've mostly just done reviews so far, this video is my first spotlight at upcoming games. I plan to do something like this, perhaps seasonally, to get a good idea of games to look forward to in the future. While the reviews will of course continue, I would also like to branch into some more genre meta-commentary, and maybe even some additional exploration of more non-video game media. If you'd like to keep up with my video project here, go ahead and use the like, comment, and sub buttons, because those three things help me out. Thanks.